Good morning, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little perturbed. I wanted a different call coming back. Do you have any idea what I
wanted Sean McDonough's call of that?
No,
Well.
I did want a Sean McDonough call. I didn't know if this was cheesy, corny. Everyone does this to you. I can't get Sid Bream out of my mind whenever your name comes up. It's just it's one of my all-time favorite calls.
Hard to believe it was more than 30 years ago now.
You don't age, man.
1992.
You don't age.
It's funny. Our producer told me yesterday. We knew for a week or more that we were coming to Tampa Bay when it was obvious they were going to host a wild card series. We assumed for most of it they were playing Toronto, and our producer Jeff Dufine told me yesterday he was slightly disappointed it wasn't Toronto for only because he had a clip of my calling the Joe Carter Toronto World Series winning home run from 30 years ago on CBS that they were going to roll in at some point. But it just means I've been around a long time and excited to be a part of ESPN and ABC's playoff coverage here, and excited about the game today.
So are those 1 and 2 in your career not even close?
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed to have had a lot of wonderful opportunities, but that Sid Bream game in '92, Game 7 of the NLCS, the Pirates and the Braves, it's one of the great baseball games of all time. MLB Network did a series, Baseball's Greatest Games. I think they rated that number 4 in the history of Major League Baseball. So, it was a classic. So many things went into it. I was just I do a weekly radio hit with the all sports station WEI in Boston.
Wow. Every
Wednesday. I was just on with them right before I'm talking with you guys, and we were talking about Tim Wakefield, and that was the first time I met Tim Wakefield, and he won 2 games in that series and probably would have been the MVP if Pittsburgh hadn't blown Game 7. But that was remarkable. And then when Joe Carter hit the home run in '93 to win the World Series for Toronto against the Philadelphia Phillies, it was just the second time in the history of Major League Baseball that the World Series had ever ended on a home run. So, when I was at CBS, those were the only 2 years I did the postseason because we lost the rights to Major League Baseball the following year, beginning in '94. But if you're only going to have 2 years to do it, those were two pretty good years with very memorable games.
Sean, going into this series, what was your expectation of the series as a whole, of the Rangers, of their chances of beating Tampa coming into the series?
Well, I think the question was, what would the mindset be? And we asked Bruce Bochy about that. Obviously it looked like they were going to win the division. They've had an amazing season. I mean, I think if you take out all the ups and downs that got them to 90 wins, if you told them before the year started you'll win 90 and you'll be in the playoffs, I think everybody would have signed up for that, especially after winning 68 games last year. But the way it happened, looking like they were going to win the division, for a long time it looked like they'd win the division. Then it looked like they were dropping like a rock and might not even make the playoffs. And then they looked pretty comfortable to win the division again. And then they didn't. You just wondered a little bit. They put themselves obviously in a much tougher spot, having to play a 2 out of 3 series on the road against the team that's been the best in the American League at home this year and is 5 years in a row in the playoffs. So, Bruce Bochy said, we're disappointed, obviously. We would have liked to play it at home in front of our fans and rested. And he even made a joke about what a long flight it was from Seattle to Tampa when they flew over Dallas. He was wishing, they could just land the plane and go home. But, he said that'll be behind us by the time we take the field today. It's the playoffs. And, and he's right. I mean, his team looked ready to go, and it was Tampa Bay that looked like they were in a daze. I mean, that was so uncharacteristic of the kind of baseball they've played for many years now and being a fixture in the playoffs. So I think that's behind them, and obviously they have a chance to win the series in advance today. But impressed by the season that they've had.
Sean, when you look at the, you just referenced it there, how sloppy Tampa looked in this game. And this was an instance where Texas made a lot of big plays defensively. Tampa had a lot of, problems defensively. And ultimately that may have swung the game, is just how both teams played defensively. Can you recall a team playing in a big game like that defensively, like Tampa did yesterday?
No, I really can't. And, there haven't been many just when you look at the notes and stats. It wasn't just the 4 errors, too. I mean, you guys watched the game. There were several other plays that just could have been made that weren't. And, the ball that went off Siri's arm, basically, in center field that went for a double for Corey Seager, that's a ball that ordinarily he would catch. Matter of fact, he'd been inactive. He'd been on the injured list since the middle of September, and he was a question mark right until before the game yesterday. They had to have the roster in at 10 o'clock yesterday morning. We asked Kevin Cash, and he said, yeah, Siri's in. We need him out there for his defense. We need him to run around center field and catch the ball. So, that's why he's out there. He's not a great hitter. And there were a number of other plays like that. So, to me, the 4 errors doesn't even tell the whole story because, there were several other plays in the field that really hurt them. So, if they play like that again today, their season will be over. That's for sure.
And on Texas' side, like I said, they played solid defensively. Evan Carter did have an error, but overall I thought he was really good defensively. He made a big impression just with how mature his approach is at the plate. How impressed are you, and just from your conversations, with the Rangers organization, how impressive is Evan Carter?
Yeah, really impressive, right? And it was almost like he kind of got the chance by accident because of, I think it was an injury to Garcia that, got him the opportunity, and obviously he ran with it. And Tim Kirkjian talked a lot about it very eloquently, I thought, yesterday about for any hitter to have the kind of approach that he has at the plate and that kind of plate discipline. But for somebody who just turned 21, I mean, he was on base all 4 times yesterday, got 2 walks. He did make that really nice catch on the line drive to end the first inning by Isaac Paredes. And, he made the error, but it didn't cost them. And, so I think he's really impressive. It's amazing to me, right? I mean, he just showed up. A lot of people who follow the Rangers closely and listen to your show probably hadn't even heard of him not too long ago. And the same thing for on the Tampa Bay side. They have this 20-year-old who's the youngest guy in the playoffs, Junior Caminero, who, came up in September because they've had a lot of injuries, got an opportunity to play and, hit rockets all over the park. So, I mean, you just never know. Guys just mysteriously appear, then they become very important people in the postseason. So it's a great story, and Carter looks like he's going to be a terrific player for a long time.
Sean McDonough, TV play-by-play for Game 2 today here on the Boomer Jacks Bar and Grill Hotline. Sean, RJ, and Bobby, 105.3 The Fan. You mentioned Kirkjian. I decided after yesterday's game I'm drafting him number 1 for people to sit around a campfire if I need stories to be told. Does he have a story about every person with any possible detail that he can throw out there? I love every little detail this guy throws out during these games.
Well, he's so well prepared. And I mean, as I said, we thought it was probably going to be Toronto. So Tim went to Toronto and spent a lot of time up there. I had done a lot of preparation for the Blue Jays too. But, he's been all over the country these last couple of weeks, basically watching any team that had a chance to be in this series. As we said, we've known it was going to be Tampa, but would it be Houston, Seattle, Toronto? So he's buttoned up on all these teams. Nobody loves the game more than Tim. And, I don't think there's anybody who's more popular around the game. Just walking around the park with him yesterday, every player, coach, manager, usher, fellow broadcaster he runs into greets him with a warmth that is unusual because he is so well liked and so well respected. And, a lot of players don't want to stand there and tell stories to members of the media, but they do to Tim because they have such respect for him. So I thought we had a really nice balance yesterday of, some good stories because some people, start paying attention in the playoffs. They don't know who some of these people are. And, and the good statistical information and, try to do the big picture of the seasons that these people have had. These teams have had, put that in perspective. So, and in a 3-person booth, you're always trying to make sure you don't talk too much. So there's the fine line, but I thought it was a solid show yesterday. I love working with Tim and with Jess and Coley Harvey, our sideline reporter.
Sean McDonough on the call, Rangers-Rays on ESPN. Minnesota had a 3:30 local start time. They had 40,000. Tampa had a 3:08 start time. They had less than 20,000. What was your take on the crowd yesterday? Was that as disappointing for a big game?
And I agree with the premise of your question, right? It's easy to say, well, it was a weekday and they didn't know the start time till recently and they didn't know who they're playing. Well, not that should really matter in the playoffs. But, I don't understand, and I'm sure, the Rays have studied this. But to me, for all these years coming here, the biggest reason people don't go to the game is that the stadium is in a hard place to get to. unless you live over here on this peninsula, whatever you call it, with Clearwater and St. Pete, you're crossing bridges, and it's a long causeway. And, if you're on the other side of Tampa, it's a really long drive. I mean, just from the Tampa airport over to here is probably a half hour, I'm guessing. I'm not guessing, really, because I've done it a bunch of times. But to me, and now they're building the new stadium in the same place, which also doesn't make sense. So that was really disappointing. I got a text message from Kevin Brown, who's the fine play-by-play guy for the Baltimore Orioles, has done a lot of stuff for us at ESPN. He sent me a text yesterday. Congratulations on doing the least attended, playoff game since 1919. I thought it was a joke when I read it. I really did. I'm like, ha, 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 reading it. And then I realized, no, he's not kidding. I mean, except for COVID, obviously.
Wow.
That is. So it's a shame. I had crowd envy watching those other games yesterday, right? I got back to the hotel, catch the end of the Minnesota game. That crowd was crazy.
Yeah.
Same thing last night in Philadelphia and Milwaukee. I mean, that's the way the playoffs should be. And, credit to the 19,000 and change who showed up. They made a lot of noise, and it sounds louder in there because you're in a dome. But, that was really pathetic.
Sean, you've seen a lot of Nathan Eovaldi from his years with the Red Sox and seen him pitch in some big games. Him coming onto the mound today, and he's a guy who looked like a Cy Young contender in the first half of the year. He's been hampered by injuries since. What are your thoughts just in general on what you know about Eovaldi from having seen him so much and what you expect from him today?
Yeah, I think he's, if I were a fan of the Rangers, one of his teammates, I'd feel really good about him going out there. He's a proven postseason performer. He pitched he started 6 games for the Red Sox during a couple of different postseasons, 18 and 21. Red Sox won 5 of the 6 games. And I'll never forget the relief outing, when against the Dodgers, when he pitched 6 innings, got himself a new contract. He's not fazed by being out there. He's the shame of it, and you just touched on it, is, he's just had such a history of injury. I think, he's been on the injured list every season starting in 2016, except for 2021. And it's a shame because he has a lot of ability. But, I think you'd have to feel good about handing him the ball. Now, that having been said, Zach Eflin's had one of the best seasons of any pitcher in Major League Baseball this season. He's going for Tampa Bay today, too. So I'm sure they feel really good about him, and it should be an excellent pitching matchup.
Let me hear it before we let him go, Peyton.
He hacked at the 2-0, now the 2-1. Line drive and a base hit! Just as the score of the tying run. Green to the plate. And he is safe! Safe at the plate! The Braves go to the World Series!
I still get goosebumps off of it. He sounds the damn same.
Sounds the same, man.
Doesn't age.
I wish. I hadn't hit puberty. That was like the first of my now famous or infamous voice cracks, depending on how you look at it. And I remember at the time I was kind of embarrassed by it. In real time, I thought, I remember walking out of the booth. Billy Andrade, the longtime pro golfer.
Yeah.
I was now on the Champions Tour, is a really good friend. He and his wife, Jody, lived in Atlanta and still do. And they were in the booth. And when we were walking out, I said to them, oh, my God, that might be the biggest play I ever called in my life. I was 30 years old at the time.
Wow.
And I kind of botched it. But then I got down to the truck, and everybody was hugging me and telling me it was perfect for the moment and that sort of thing. So I'm not embarrassed by it anymore. But, you just feel blessed to have been there and to have been a small part of it.
Sean McDonough is calling 3 different sports this week. Wild card, college football, NHL, opening night. Real treat for us to have you on, man. Thank you so much. We'll be watching and listening today.
My pleasure, guys. Always a pleasure, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for having me. God bless.
Thank you. Sean McDonough here on The Fan.